Hello and welcome to part 2 of blood. And so we've looked at the formed elements, the cells that we find in blood, and now we're going to look at the other 55% of the blood, which is the plasma, the liquid phase, the straw coloured part when you centrifuge blood down. So in this one we're just going to have a brief run through of the major components within the plasma, because plasma can be containing many different things given a particular time of day in the individual. But we'll look at the main parts that we'll find whenever we look at the plasma of blood, and so we'll start on the back here and work through it. So 55% of the blood is plasma, it's liquid. So main things we find there: proteins, wastes which have been produced by the liver in particular and need to be removed from the blood, gases, because of course we're carrying oxygen to the cells, we're carrying carbon dioxide back, and nitrogen, most abundant in air, comes in and comes out without actually doing anything. We'll also find nutrients in the blood, vitamins, which help with reactions, and hormones, which are chemical signals which are travelling through the blood as a way to get to their target cells. A very important component of blood is the electrolytes, and there's lots of different types of electrolytes, but in this course we tend to focus mainly on sodium, potassium, a little bit on phosphate, and bicarbonate. So I'll just underline those ones. So we'll kind of pay attention to these ones in particular. Of this 55%, 92% is water. So for all of this, most of it is still just water, with the electrolytes dissolved in it, so the salts if you like, nutrients, vitamins, hormones, etc. Within the nutrients we have amino acids, which is the building blocks of proteins, simple sugars which we've consumed in our diets, and lipids which we've also consumed in our diet, so triglycerides from the fats, phospholipids which is the components in cell membranes, and of course cholesterol, which we consume in our diets and we can also make in our liver, which forms the basis of the steroid hormones, as well as helping to hold these phospholipid cell membranes together more tightly. So what else do we have? Well, I said the gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide. The oxygen is mostly carried in the red blood cells, so not much, only about 10% is in the blood itself. Carbon dioxide, again, locked in as bicarbonate and hydrogen ions, we'll discover later in the course. And now we've got proteins and wastes. Well, wastes are produced usually from the nitrogenous breakdown in the liver. So proteins, big proteins made of amino acids. All amino acids have amine groups. The amine group is NH2, so it has nitrogen in it. So all of these things are breakdowns of proteins. So as you break down a protein, you end up with nitrogenous products, and these can become dangerous to the brain and other organs if they're not dealt with quickly. So the liver continues the breakdown and creates things like urea and uric acids. Don't need an E there, it's just an I. And this can then be dumped back into the blood, filtered at the kidneys and lost in the urine. Amino acids, of course, can also just be free floating because they're part of our nutrient profile. And BUN and creatinine. BUN is blood urea nitrogen, and so that actually is a very important measure for us to look at the health of the kidneys, and we compare that along with the creatine and creatinine, which this is used in the muscle cells to phosphorylate ADP to get quick energy, and creatinine is a breakdown product of that process. So we can look at that level and that level in a kidney or renal panel, and that tells us a lot, along with the EGFR, about how the kidneys are working, how well they are working. And we'll look at that when we look at the urinary system. So that's our waste that get removed by the kidneys. Finally, proteins. Well, we've got three types of protein. We have albumin, globulins, and fibrinogen. Going from last to first, fibrinogen, the final part of clotting, which we're going to look at in one of the talks for this. So I'm going to leave that pretty much to when we talk about hemostasis or clotting. The globulins, gamma globulins, are involved in the immune system. And again, we'll look at them briefly when we look at the immune system. Alpha and beta globulins, they tend to be more to do with transport of substances like fats, which will not dissolve in the 92% of water that we've got. So they bind onto the alpha or the beta globulin and it carries it in the blood to its destination, which is very, very helpful. Finally, we have albumin. And albumin is very important in maintaining blood volume. And this is done by creating or increasing the osmotic pressure at the capillary beds. When blood reaches a capillary, it's under pressure, and so the spaces in the capillary, as it reaches under pressure, pushes the fluid out, and so the nutrients, the oxygen, etc., leave along that fluid pathway and create the force necessary to take the nutrients, etc., the hormones and the oxygen to the cells. But because we've done that to push everything out, when we get to the other side of the capillary, when we're trying to draw fluid back into the blood to carry it away, now we have a problem because we've lost our orthostatic pressure pushing out has reduced down. There's nothing to draw it back in except the fact that we have all this albumin, which is the same as the white of an egg, is albumin, and it sits in the blood, and because it's large protein it cannot leave through the gaps, and so if you remember your osmosis, when something can't cross a membrane, it draws water by osmosis in the opposite direction. And so this creates that pressure of very little protein in the fluid surrounding the capillary, which is the fluid we call interstitial, if you remember, but lots of protein inside of the albumin, so it draws the water back at the venial end of the capillary, maintaining our blood volume, or almost maintaining our blood volume. Our lymphatic system does the final part of that job. So this is what we find in blood plasma, 55% of remaining, the liquid straw-coloured fluid. And that's all I've got to say about that, so thank you for listening.